Hi there.
Hello, we are back.
Lewis and Christina from Ascension Dimension.
We've had a couple of weeks off because this man's been video editing. It's taken him ages now. Been working hard.
The Feeling, the music video I put out.
Yes.
I wrote it quite a long time ago, and it's relevant now, I think.
Yeah, very relevant.
It's a good one. High vibes, very optimistic. Nice rocky guitar solo in it. I did everything. I did all the instruments. I'm very proud of it.
I'm really proud of it too. It's really, really lovely. Very proud of you.
Yeah.
I did the video. I filmed the video, not edited it. I filmed it. We got up at 7 o'clock in the morning to get the sunrise on that mountain. It was one of our stops in the van in the summer. So anyway, that's out. You can look on our channel. If you go to playlists, I've got them down as music. So you can see all the songs so far. And Lewis is back in his creative state, which makes me really happy.
Yeah, so I've managed to get 4 music videos out now.
Yeah.
Which is more than I've really done.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'm a driving force, you see, because I'm fan number 1.
And I'm aligning
Yeah.
with the little nagging voice. Not nagging.
That's not me.
But I'm aligning with that thing that I've always known. You know you want to do this. You know you want to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm just going with it. And, you know...
Good coffee.
What's and just aligning with that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a bit scary because the traditional way of doing things is very much, well, you got to put money first.
Yeah.
But the new way of thinking, or the way that's supposed to work, apparently, with this new spiritual way of aligning with your
Apparently, this is how it works.
is do the thing that you love and just throw yourself into that as much as you can.
So yes, Lewis's job is to create, and that's it. The rest will be done. Luckily, he has a wife like me. Anyway, we don't want to digress into that. That's what we're up to at the moment. That's there's lots more coming though. He's in creative state.
Yeah.
Today we wanted to touch a little bit on our journey. We're going back a few years now, because the journey of healing isn't just healing your traumas and healing addictions and all that kind of stuff. It's also a medical side to healing and a diet side and lots of different sides to healing. Health. So we had to go down this journey quite early on, forcedly, because our son, when he was between 2 and 3?
It was about 2.
It was about 2. He got diagnosed with hypoglycemia. So when Jensen was born, like any parents, we were very obsessed with no sugar, everything natural, everything healthy. But then obviously you have these family members called grandparents, which are also very excited when baby comes along, and you kind of forget about them when you're in baby process. And they're also very excited to give child their first everything. And we noticed that he was also bouncing off the walls when he came back from grandma's, from getting too much white carbs, basically, I think it was, and sugar.
He was like, we noticed a
huge difference.
Yeah, like neurological.
And then,
he was so upset.
It was different, very, very different. So we spoke to our paediatrician, who we were very, very lucky, and we had a very, very good paediatrician who was actually there since he was born. And knowing that Lewis's dad was diabetic, the first thing she did, she's run all the tests, and he wasn't diabetic. But because she knew Jensen very well, we kept him, monitored him quite closely, and then she referred us off to a specialist, because she was, I think it was about 6 months or so, she'd gone off to do some work in Africa somewhere, and then she came back, she goes, I think I know what it is, because it was like symptoms of diabetes, but he wasn't diabetic, but he was having these massive emotional changes and crashes from which we couldn't get him back up, just to do with his diet. So like and we weren't big on giving him a lot of sugar or candy or anything, but he was like after a bowl of spaghetti bolognese, for example, he'd go up really high and then he'd get really emotionally upset. And in the mornings, because he'd obviously been without food for a long time, he was like, you couldn't reason with him, could you? You couldn't speak to him. He'd be very incoherent. So we went down the diagnostic road of hypoglycemia, and at the beginning, we had to go into hospital. They tested his blood sugar over 24 hours, provoking the hypoglycemia. So basically, no food till his blood sugars.
Just to interject,
Yeah.
hypoglycemia is a symptom.
Yes.
It's not a disease. It's a symptom.
Yes.
It's what happens when your blood sugar goes low.
Yeah.
So that's not a diagnosis. It's just what happens. So there was all sorts of things that I was looking into in terms of like there's so many different parts of the metabolic chain of events that occur when your body's breaking down food and storing energy and retrieving that energy. There's all sorts of wonderful processes that take part, and sometimes the body's lacking in a certain link in that chain. So we were looking at all sorts. I mean, I went very deep into it.
Well, what happened at the beginning was when we first found out, we were like, well, what's that? So they explained it to us like there's a break in the chain somewhere from when he eats and his body stores the food. When he crashes, normally a body would take the fat or the sugar from wherever it's stored and process that, whereas he wasn't doing that. So then they switched him onto a slow release diet. So we didn't understand what that was. It was very confusing. Bear in mind he was about 3 at the time, which wasn't easy, but then I suppose he took everything in his stride quite easily. We switched his diet over to we did a lot of research from that point forward. And the doctors at the beginning were very good because he wasn't. Once we switched his diet, we had it quite under control. As long as we were very good with his diet, we did a lot of research. We realised what worked. We were very strict. There was absolutely no sugar whatsoever, nothing processed, nothing white. We went whole grain only. We were pretty much obsessed with his diet because we understood that this was having a neurological effect, and he's a child, and it was his brain development was what was getting stopped or whatever, which was having would have the issues if we allowed him to crash often, which we made sure that didn't happen very often. I'd like to say we're pretty good at that.
I mean, it was. We were also getting conflicting advice because sometimes the doctor said, "Oh, it's this," and then sometimes they said, "Oh, but we haven't quite got the results to back that up." There was a lot of guesswork. Well, not guesswork, but there was a lot of conflicting information. And then they said, "Oh, you've got to wake him up every couple of hours in the night and give him this drink." They said to give him corn syrup.
Cornstarch.
Cornstarch. Sorry,
cornstarch mixed with water.
So I went straight away on the internet to look up what's the glycemic index, because this is what you need to know about. Its glycemic index is very important. It's the rate at which your body metabolizes the carbohydrates. So if it's like anything white pasta, white sugar, table sugar is 100, and everything's based on that. So you want to look for lower glycemic, so less than 50 for sure. Things like lentils and anyway. So
yeah, we were doing this because they were saying that when he woke up in the morning.
Let me finish. So the cornstarch was fast. It was
fast.
like 80 or something. So I'm thinking that doesn't seem right.
Plus,
because that causes your blood sugar to go up fast to then crash down, and it didn't really work.
4.5, 5-year-old at this point.
And it's horrible.
Try drinking a glass of cornstarch with water. At this point, our doctor had changed, so we had a bit of our paediatrician had changed, and the specialist at the hospital had changed. It was kind of like everyone was moving around, and we got forgotten about a little bit because he wasn't in danger zone, because obviously there was a lot of diabetic children and stuff like that. So in the end, our paediatrician became the specialist at the hospital. So she gave us, she wanted to do a 2-week test with one of those diabetic
constant blood sugar monitors.
So we could see what was happening to him at night, which was great because then we actually realised what was going on. So that was after the cornstarch incident. But we went very deep into analysing what glycemic index is, what are slow release carbohydrates, what whole grains work better, and what is a real whole grain, and how the processed food is, because and then there was also, how much of it can you have, because there's nothing about this. I mean, now there's more and more coming out, but it is still a symptom, like you said, and it's not an illness in itself, whereas they still use it as an illness.
I genuinely believe that a lot of kids are getting misdiagnosed with ADD, ADHD, lots of other acronyms, and behavioural disorders, because their blood sugar's all over the place and it's affecting the brain. Because it's affecting the microbiome. This is another thing that I learned all about, is the microbiome. So you've got billions and billions and billions of these bacteria. There's probably more cells in your microbiome than actually human cells that are bacteria. And that microbiome is connected directly to your brain via the vagus nerve. So microbiome, if you get an imbalance in the bacteria in your microbiome, they start making all sorts of decisions and sending that up to the brain, which leads to bad eating habits, sugar cravings, bad moods, mood swings, all sorts of other behavioural issues. So if you're going through any kind of behavioural issues, the first thing I would look at is cleaning up the microbiome, which could involve some. I'm not a doctor giving out medical advice, but it's something that we did.
This is purely our journey. Yeah.
Is a good probiotic. And
well, what happened at the end as well, after we got bunched from one hospital to Malaga Centre to the children's department, and we got because we in the paperwork, or was it even in lockdown? Because we got an appointment and then they moved it, and then we actually got to see the head of the department, and he looked at all of the paperwork and the blood tests and everything, and he said he agreed with Lewis. He says, I think he's been misdiagnosed. I totally agree that it could be a microbiome issue. Let's get him on some probiotics and let's see how he is in a few months, isn't it? He said, because otherwise we have to go through the testing process again. We've got to bring on the hypoglycemia, and he could tell that we personally as parents didn't want to put his body into a crash mode to find out what was going on with him, because it has an effect on his brain and on his mood, and it sometimes could take weeks to get him out of that situation. So if he'd crashed, I noticed just purely academically, it would take about a week or so before his brain would put simple things back together in a logical way like he worked before. So we were very, very adamant that we didn't want to do that, and we went on to the probiotics, and that really, really did help. But we also so much further down the line with the diet and understanding how he reacted, that we realised that he's just a pure gift here to teach us how to live healthy more than anything, because as long as his diet is completely natural and healthy, he works well, doesn't he?
And funnily enough, as long as when he's exercising, he's always getting the energy out of his muscles. That's a funny thing I noticed when we used to go swimming all the time.
Yeah.
He would be fine. We wouldn't have to keep feeding him.
No, but at one point they had us feeding him every 2 hours. If he was doing sports, feed him every hour or every hour and a half. So it was like we put him into sports camp one summer, and it was really stressful because I was like onto all the teachers, like, you got to snack him, you got to give him nuts, you got to give him half a banana, and he would like carry around this massive bag of food with him. Whereas really he didn't need all that food. We were maintaining him, whereas we've relaxed a lot more and let him tell us when he's hungry, and we can see when his mood's a little bit, when he's starting to come down a bit, and we talk him through it. He's a lot older now. He'll be 10 in January, but
which does help that he can talk his way through.
Yeah. The communication is a lot better, but we were overfeeding him at one point, which was, we don't know if that's better or worse, but the doctor in Malaga did say he didn't like us feeding him that much because it was more strain on his liver for processing, and that let's try and get his microbiome sorted. So we've really lucked out with the specialists and the doctors that we've had, apart from the cornstarch lady.
So in essence, the key takeaways were glycemic index is very important.
Yes.
massively. It affects the balance of the bacteria in your microbiome. If you're trying to lose weight or just trying to keep your weight at a good level, look at the glycemic index of the foods that you're eating, because you can swap out, rather than going just for no carbs, because a lot of people say, oh, you go to the keto diet, you can just swap out some of your carbs for slower release carbohydrates, brown pasta, brown bread.
I would recommend that to anyone anyway, because
I think it makes no sense to have white pasta to me.
No,
Because I just don't see it.
No.
To me, it's like poison.
yeah, it is.
It just seems like.
I mean, it's processed, so if you've got to go down the processed route and eat the pasta and the bread, you're better off going whole grain anyway. We also have a daughter who was born afterwards, and she obviously isn't obviously you don't know. She's not hypoglycemic, but we've noticed with her, because like at birthday parties and stuff, we allow her to not follow the diet because we're very strict at home and we all keep the same diet so there's nobody's left out, and due to our own health journeys, which we'll go into in another episode, and we see a massive shift in her with regards to just eating like white bread or white pasta. You see the mood swings straight away because she's been on a very clean diet, so to speak. We're very big on pulses, so beans and lentils, we use them a lot, because also I'm vegan or vegetarian most of the time, so that's my source of big proteins. And we like to eat a lot of rice. Now, rice is one of the only things that we can go on to white rice, like white basmati rice. And I truly believe that's just because it is a natural grain. It's not a processed grain like a pasta's processed into the shape and stuff with rice, because it grows as it is. I believe that's why it's easier for him then it doesn't spike him so much. But yeah, that's glycemic index versus glycemic load. You're pretty good at that one.
Yeah,
I'm not.
so glycemic load it takes into account the glycemic index, which is like the rate at which something is absorbed into your bloodstream, and the load is also the amount of that, the amount of carbohydrates. So like watermelon is very high glycemic index, but the glycemic load, because there's not a lot of those carbohydrates in it, because it's mostly water, the glycemic load is quite low. So there are two things to take into account, into consideration. But the other thing that I found out about with this research was about autophagy, which is fantastic to know about.
Yeah, this has helped for us more than our son, because obviously we haven't put him through that. But
if you're constantly eating and you're in a state of eating every few hours when you're awake, your body's never getting into this state of autophagy, which is where it's literally eating itself. So your body has a process called autophagy, where your body is scanning through old cells that are maybe a bit depleted, they're not quite functioning properly, and your body will just eat those cells, get all the amino acids and everything from inside the cells, and renew the cells and regenerate. So that won't happen, let's say with brain cells, neurons and whatnot. They will just be functioning maybe at 50% capacity until you get into this state of autophagy, and then your body's going to start renewing all those cells. But again, that won't happen if you're in a state of digestion, which is, for most people, if we're following the standard American diet, or the food pyramid, you're always eating. So very rarely do we have breakfast now. Like I won't eat till about 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, we tend to intermittent fast now, don't we? But the children do eat breakfast, but they also don't eat as soon as they wake up. They eat when they're hungry. We're a bit more lenient on that, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, we get to a certain point where we've got to say, right, breakfast time. But yeah, autophagy is fantastic. Someone won the Nobel Prize for discovering it a few years ago, or I guess rediscovering it and giving it a name. But,
it was interesting. I watched a YouTube thing that you found with regards to blood sugar and stuff. I watched it with Jensen and my grandmother, and it said if Granny's really sick, best thing you can do for her is starve her for 3 days. And we thought that was hilarious. But then a few weeks later, my grandmother did get sick. She got a really bad cold. And I said to her, she's like, oh, well, I need to eat something. I was like, nope, you're not eating anything. We're just keeping you on liquid water and don't eat. And she didn't eat for a few days and she felt amazing afterwards. She actually followed our advice. Well, she's living in our house. She had no choice. But it was good, wasn't it? It was really nice. It was really nice way to show all these things that we've been learning with regards to diet over the last 8 years, because we were forced into it, and we see a lot of the side effects when we skip it. Obviously, our son never skips out on his diet. He's pretty much, we're starting to experiment with him a little bit, but not overly. We don't go down the sweets route because we know that sugar is the biggest poison. It is legal poison, so it is one of the biggest poisons on the planet. But we don't go down that route. But we do let him have, like pasties and stuff now and again, just to see how he reacts to them. But only when he's been on a very balanced diet, and we just keep it that way because it's just not worth the hassle. But yeah, we wanted to share our little story with regards to.
Yeah. I mean, when he gets to the age where he can manage his own moods and he knows that he's got to control his own diet himself, then fine. But we're getting that rock solid foundation of knowledge, and we've always kept him in the loop with all the decisions as to why, and all the science, but the actual science that
And to the point where we talk about it openly as a family. We're all very aware of the diet, the way it is, and why we eat certain things. Our children eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. They're very good with it. All of their little friends and everything, they all know about Jensen's issue, so that if he was to crash, how to bring him back up again, or why his mood swings can be a bit funny if his diet's been a bit off. So that's good.
And the other thing, just to tie in, as we're more aware about the world situation, the global situation with regards to the gigantic corporations like Monsanto and Bayer.
Yeah.
Bought Monsanto. So we're very much aware that the things that we're putting in our bodies, even if it looks fresh and from the grocery, from the fruit and veg section, it's probably loaded with pesticides. So we're trying now to get a lot more veg from a local organic place.
We get pretty much everything from there now. We don't, if it runs out, then we don't eat it. We do our weekly shop from the local organic place. We found one finally. It's taken a little while.
But that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I think it's become clear that we're being poisoned. We're not meaning to sound doom and gloom, but it's just something to be aware of. That a lot of the things in the food supply chain, whether it's intentional, whether it's just a greed and profit-driven thing, I think it's a bit more sinister than that personally. But
but we're not going to go into there because that's your.
But anyway,
that's
there's
your
something to
It's just to keep in mind that if we can clean up as much as we can. So diet isn't a fad. Diet isn't a thing to lose weight. Diet is a way of life, and your diet is what you eat. And if we are what we eat, then we need to look at what we're putting in our bodies. It doesn't mean that we can never eat the other things, because we are human and we have been raised in a world where these things exist. Just be a little bit more aware of it. But if you are having issues or you notice differences in your children, I think the first thing I would look at is diet, because our friends have looked at their diet, having known what we've been through with Jensen, and everyone agrees that as soon as you switch they notice a lot of difference.
We were so passionate about all this that we were going to do. I bought the domain name lifewithdiets.com. I think it's
we've even got the YouTube channel, and I've got the Instagram and everything. Yeah,
we were going to be doing cooking videos and blog all about all this stuff. We really were.
I was TikToking about it throughout the whole of 2020. Really, we took it as our sign to set it all up. Then, didn't we? And we were locked up.
We just got busy with some other stuff. So
yes,
but it is fascinating, and it's a whole new world of recipes and a way of just looking after yourself. And I noticed like a body transformation for
Yeah.
sure.
Definitely.
With, I used to be a full-on English breakfast every week, and probably eating meat 2 or 3 times a day.
Well, when we first met, that changed, didn't we? Because I've never been a big meat eater, and he'd have meat 3 times a day. So that's changed a lot in our family. But that's another whole other episode, is our diet thing. This one we wanted to keep to our journey with what we've been through with our son, and all the things that we've noticed with our daughter as well, because he's come in with quite a lesson to show us, and that's totally what it is. It was a lesson for us to see what we need, and he understands that he's a natural gift.
I would say almost that it seems like a form of evolution. Like he's almost so well evolved to indicate, his body indicates to him that this isn't good for you. It's indicates to us as well that it's just he requires higher vibrational.
Yeah, and even like sometimes when we go out for meals and he has something, even though it's whole grain or it's just meat and vegetables, and he'll tell us, no, I don't feel right after that, something was wrong. So we know that there's something in that particular meal that he's had that hasn't agreed with him. So, but he knows how he feels now, so it's very... Plus, a load of grapes don't work for him either. We've done that on a hike. That didn't work.
It did not work.
No.
So even like fruit and veg,
Yeah.
like the grapes have a very high glycemic index.
Very high glycemic index, yes.
Yeah, and he was going for a wee every 5 minutes. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's his body just trying to get the sugar out of the body.
Yeah. And then he started to feel all dizzy and he wanted to throw up, so he couldn't hike any longer. So we had to sit and wait. And they walked home, and he came back to pick us up. But it's things like that. So everything basically it's the rule of everything in moderation. But in this case, it's purely natural, and whole food, plant based is what works for him best. But he does love his meat, and protein works for him. He's a grown boy. Every now and again he turns vegetarian, but then he goes back to his sausages. So
anyway, if you're going through any of these kind of things with your kids, and you've got any questions, let us know.
Yeah,
because we've been through a lot of research and hard times. It's hard when you see your kids suffering,
and it's a lot of tips on how to help your children change their diet, because once they're older, it's a lot harder as well. We've been through that with some friends as well, so
you want to create a positive habit with regards to eating, so that they don't just leave home at 18 and then eat whatever the hell they want. I mean, that's their journey, but
it's their journey. But you don't want them to pig out on sweets the minute they turn their back. They need to understand why it is and how it makes them feel. And that's so. Any questions, any comments, anything you'd like us to, you can either email us or put it in the comments below, and we will reply with as much information as we've got.
Can they email us? How can they email us?
I don't know. You can email us. Have you not got our email on there? No.
You can get me. Lewis Hanshaw at protonmail.com.
Yeah, you can get Lewis.
Lewis Hanshaw at protonmail.com. It's on the.
Yeah.
I wrote it in the music video.
And we'll update our channel information as well, because we've both got our own Instagrams, so you can get us on there as well. And TikTokies. But that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us for this episode. We will cover more diet stuff coming up, because we've got our own journeys with diets that we've learnt along the way as well. Mm-hmm. And lots of other health. Yeah, some really cool health topics coming up, because we've also learnt a whole bunch of other stuff. Breathing exercises, cold immersion, cold treatments, Rife machines, CDS. Yeah, we've got a lot of all that coming up. So next week we will be back with some more wonderful information. Yep. You're going to keep trying weekly, aren't we? Yeah. Yeah. See you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye for now. Bye.